Welcome everybody to this special event on our brand new Innovation Center for Artificial Intelligence, ILUSTRE. And ILUSTRE stands for Innovation Lab for Utilities on Sustainable Technology and Renewable Energy. Welcome everybody online, but also here in our chapel at JADS, and a special welcome to the people in Curaçao, whom we will turn to later. Before we start with our event, I would like to show a few courtesy rules for these type of events. Please switch off your microphone, switch off your camera unless you are presenting. This session will also be recorded. And for questions for people who are here with us in the chapel, we have a microphone, so raise your hand in case you want to ask something. What you saw on the trailer video is that JADS is a data science university in a collaboration between Eindhoven University of Technology and Tilburg University. And what you also saw in the trailer video is that we are housed in the former convent Marienburg, which is a beautiful place where students, scientists, and businesses work together in a mission to create value for society. And one of such collaborations between businesses and science is our ILUSTRE Lab. And that's shown on my next slide. By the way, our students like to refer to what we do as we do cool stuff that matters with data. So this slide shows our program of today, but most importantly, the message that I want to bring is that we have a few very interesting PhD positions, and you can find them on our new ILUSTRE website, www.illustre.nl. Please have a look, especially people from the Caribbean who wish to pursue a career in research. Please have a look, and you're very welcome to apply. I'm the host of today. I'm Renato Calzone, working at JADS. I'm the program manager, data science for social good, and I'm co-hosting this event together with Rigo, who is with me here. Rigo, you're the founder and CEO of Lanubia, who has set up ILUSTRE together with JADS. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey and the importance of ILUSTRE for you and Curaçao?
Yeah, thank you, Renato. Yes, I was born in Curaçao. I'm living now 22 years in Netherlands, and I lived 22 years in Netherlands, and I have a career in a transformation manager, doing a business transformation, helping companies to transform, implementing new technology. And I started my career in utility sector. So I started at a company called GTI. They changed names later a lot of time, and it's part of GDF Suez, a big France company. Mm-hmm. And they focus on utility, the whole utility sector. So they're producing energy, they are doing waste management, they do things like charging of electrical cars. So they didn't do different things in the utility sector. So I have a good experience in the utility sector. And later I moved to the consultancy world. And later I had the chance to start my own company in 2014, Lanubia Consulting. And I was so happy to have the opportunity in 2017 also to help the island to implement new systems for utilities company in Curaçao.
Originally you are from Curaçao, right?
Yes, I was born in Curaçao, but I never worked in Curaçao. I was going every time back to Curaçao, and I was practically working in Europe. Mm-hmm. And I had the chance in 2017 to work for Agrolectra and help them implement the SAP there. And I saw the chance to, how can we help the Caribbean region to bring the technologies that we have in Europe, and how can we bring that back to the island? Because we have a lack on adoption of technology there. And I saw a lot of opportunities that we can, not only bring the new technology, but also try to bring talent and keep talents also back to the island. So
that's why this is a Dutch Caribbean initiative, ILUSTRE.
Yes, correct. I think that's one of the important aspects of ILUSTRE. We are part of a big consortium in Netherlands. I think we are one of the 17 labs. With this lab specifically focused on the Caribbean region. So, and we are very happy to make the difference also to the region, because we not focus only on Curaçao, but we try to emphasize all those 6 Dutch Caribbean islands in the region, and then also combine knowledge sharing through Netherlands and the Dutch Kingdom.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch in a minute to Curaçao, but first let us also welcome Eric Posma, who is with us today. Eric is the scientific director of ILUSTRE, and he will have a talk later on. And to my other side, there's Claudia Zucca, and she's responsible for the very important topic of social adoption. And we will also have a look at that later on during this event. Yeah, let's maybe switch to Curaçao and introduce the people there.
Yes. Yeah, on Curaçao, I have a colleague of me, Aldo Silvano, and
he was born in Holland, I understood.
Yeah, he's opposite of me. He was born in Holland and went to Curaçao. But Aldo can introduce yourself and also introduce the audience on Curaçao side.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, you could have let me drop that gem, Renato, because we just switched places. I was born in the Netherlands, raised on the island of Curaçao, and I still have a passion for helping the island and helping all organizations on the island to progress and become better at what they do. And I still strongly believe that technology forms a critical role in that. So, and that's where my passion lies. And that's what I truly believe in, and data and artificial intelligence, machine learning, everything around data science is the next frontier of what we are going to invest in right now as La Nubia, as ILUSTRE, and not only the development on the academical side of things, but also trying to make real world progress. And that's what we want to do. And we're not doing this alone. We are doing this together with the Ministry of Economic Development, of which Vanessa Toré is the one that's also in the call that is representing that organization.
Yes, good morning. Hi, everyone, everybody there in the Netherlands, also here in Curaçao. I'm joining you from the office. It's a busy morning, so the reason why I'm not in the studio with you, but here online, and technology is making all of this possible. Happy to be part of this, happy to support. We are one of the partners from the beginning when we received an invitation to hear about ILUSTRE and JADS and everything that is happening. We said that we want to be part of it. As the ministry responsible for energy, we are working on the energy transition, and AI in energy transition are very important to us. So we look forward to the morning, to the interactions, and also hopefully we will convince a lot of candidates to apply, but only 5 can be selected.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Great to have you. Spread the word about the PhD vacancies. We will turn to you later. Right now, before we take a deep dive, Rigo, maybe let's have a look at what ILUSTRE is all about. Yeah, so you prepared one slide, I understood.
Yes, we have one slide about ILUSTRE. First, before making the link to ILUSTRE, I want to say also why I saw the opportunity to open ILUSTRE, because during my MBA, my Global Executive MBA in 2017, I had an assignment to look, okay, what is the relation between complexity and innovation? Mm-hmm. And by doing that, we create a kind of innovation index to be able to compare firsthand the countries, and then later look to what are the industries doing in terms of innovation, and what kind of complexity the innovation is bringing to be able to implementing, create adoption, etc. Yeah. So by doing a comparison to the countries, I had the chance also to visit a lot of countries during my MBA. So I did a comparison also cross-country. I'm presenting it here also to show a result of my comparison to let you see that we are very good in Netherlands, because we have a lot of governmental push to innovation from European Union, but also for the government. A lot of industries working very innovative things, and also in terms of industry, we have a lot of industry that focus really on innovation. So we have a really knowledge country, so we focus on that. So all parameters are green in Netherlands. We have good people, we have good talent, etc. And I compared it also, I was working at that moment at Agroelectra in Curaçao, so I had also the chance to communicate with a lot of in-state institutions to try to innovate also on bank payment things, etc. So I had the chance also there to look how things are going. And I see the chance also that, okay, we don't have too much industry because it's a small island focused on tourism.
Yeah.
And we had Agroelectra as utility, so it is one of the biggest industry on Curaçao, and we have an oil refinery. And we didn't have industry. So in that sense, yeah, there is opportunity in that level. And in terms of education, also we see that, okay, we have 3 universities, universities of applied science. And most of our talents are going to Netherlands or going to US to study. And they're not coming back. And so we are missing the talent. So I saw the opportunity to say, okay, how can maybe I also do the things that I like to do, because I was working, I was happy that I, as a Curaçao born, can do kind of innovative project there. Yeah. And how great should it be for others also to do those kinds of things and not keep working in US or keep working in Netherlands. And together with JADS, we get the opportunity to fund this ILUSTRE Lab. And ILUSTRE is not only about academical research, so that's I want to make the shift to ILUSTRE. ILUSTRE is not about only academical research, but we try to bring the academia together with the industry. So how
real
can we,
implementations?
Yes, more real implementation, translating the research results to real tangible solutions for the industry, and then help the industry also to adopt in that sense.
Very important, yeah. Well, that brings us to the next topic, I think.
Yeah.
Let's turn to the scientific director. What do you think about this, Eric?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. Of course, we visited the island recently with a great tour over the island, and I think this is a unique opportunity to try to utilize AI and data science for this this island as a kind of test case, but also for the benefit of the island and people living there.
Yeah, so can you take us with you into the academic program? So how does it look like?
Yes, so we have 5 PhD positions, and these 5 PhD positions are all centered around AI. And AI is a kind of a buzzword that many of you might have heard about. But to summarize what AI actually is, that's some developments that happened, especially over the last 10 years, that connected to earlier developments in data science and related fields. And AI is now able to make very good predictions on the basis of a lot of data. And we see these innovations everywhere on the internet, for the big tech companies. But one of the main limitations is the connection to humans. And one of the problems often is the real implementation. And that's crucial for the ILUSTRE project. So we defined 5 PhD positions that are centering around the domains that are of relevance for Curaçao. And we would be really eager to see candidates for these positions that have affinity with Curaçao, come from Curaçao, maybe went to the Netherlands or to the United States and are willing to come back, or to do it from out of the Netherlands, but at least to have some affinity, because we consider this cultural link to be very important to guarantee the success of these projects. Now, these are PhD projects, which means the focus is on research, but our whole approach to this project is manifold. So we also take into account implementations and the interactions with the industry and civilians to make sure that this works very well. Now I have some slides to show you, to give you some impression of what these projects are about. And the point is that all of them are centered around these topics, but all of them are paying attention to the human factors. And the human factors is, how do we make sure that, for instance, if we have a system that makes predictions, that it can also explain or provide insight to the humans that use these systems of why these decisions are made. Because these very powerful AI systems, I'm trying to get my slide active, these very powerful AI systems often are not very transparent and can make mistakes. So it's imperative that humans can check it and look at these results. So the 5 PhD positions are, I will briefly show slides, just summarizing to give you an idea. One of them is an AI system for decision support in the context of water desalination, recycling and purification. And the leading professor of this project is Professor Uzay Kamak, who is here in the audience. And here the intention is to make sure that the decisions that have to be made on this domain are supported by AI. So it's not a question of having an AI system, a deep learning system or something like that to make this decision. It's to support humans. Now, if you're interested, if you're watching this or attending this, or you know somebody who might be interested in this topic, what we're looking for is people that have understanding of AI, but are also able to think about the application. So this is not a pure theoretical project, it's an applied research project. Now that's one example. The second example is the following. That's to have AI for power load balancing and the forecasting for renewable energy. So this project is more located in the energy sector. And the question is here, how can you make sure that you have AI that adapts to the local circumstances? So there are many examples of algorithms that have already been developed, but often AI is a matter of making it tailored to the situation at hand. And of course, Curaçao has a unique situation given the climate and all kinds of other circumstances. And that's something that will be addressed in this project, which is led by Professor Dan Stouw. The third example is about, that's a project where I'm involved, and therefore I know what it is. But yes, that's about using a predictive maintenance. This is a well-known application. It's to predict when a system will fail. But one of the things we want to achieve here is to have real-time prediction so that you can predict when something will fail and when you have to address this by performing maintenance. And we want to use that in the context of the electricity infrastructure. Maybe it's good to emphasize that many of these projects have been based on general concerns that we know are playing a role at Curaçao. But depending on the candidates that reflect on this and their backgrounds and their interests, we are willing and flexible to adopt these topics. So this is the third one. The fourth one is led by Dr. Martijn Willemstad, who's also here in the audience. And this has to do, you could say, a bit more AI in combination with humans. The point is often that humans can adopt their behavior, and also industry that is using energy, to the scarcity or availability of energy. And this is commonly known as the demand response. And this project will focus on the AI side, the technical, and the human part of this demand response. And as you can imagine, if you look at these different projects, all these different projects require slightly different profiles in terms of expertise. So be aware that we are also very flexible in that respect. Now, the last project is a project that is specifically focused on the human factors, so on the adoption. And because one of the requirements of this project was it should be about AI, but also about the social impact of AI. And Claudia Zucca, oh, went one too far. Claudia Zucca, who is on the table here, is also involved in this project, by the way, also in the previous project. And this is about what social support is there for the adoption of AI technology. So as a technical person, you could invent all kinds of great tools and AI algorithms, but if they're not accepted and if they're cannot be used in practice, they are actually worthless. So that's why we have this specific project tailored to this topic. And of course, Dr. Zucca will explain more about that in her presentation. These were the 5 projects.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Welcome.
I think it's very clear what we will be working on. Of course, ILUSTRE is much bigger, Rigo, because we'll probably also move towards professional education in general. Yeah, but this is the core of our program. I have one question to you, Eric, because it sounds very international, of course, yeah, but we are a Dutch university, or actually 2 Dutch universities, already in 2 different places, whereas the PhD will work from Curaçao. How will it be managed? Where do the people stay? How is it organized? How do you see this?
Yeah, so this organization is not yet known. The only thing is that we will be flexible. So suppose we get a very good candidate who is knowledgeable about the local situation in Curaçao, but happens to live in the Bosch, then of course this candidate will be located here mainly, but we can also have, of course, excursions to Curaçao. And the other way around is also possible, that people work and live in Curaçao, that we can have remote supervision and some visits from these persons to our institute. So this is, because the project is unique, also these solutions to appointments will be unique. So we will be flexible. So if you're in doubt whether that will be, if your situation would be admissible, just give it the benefit of the doubt and we will try to solve it.
And of course, all of us like to go to Curaçao, so that's not a problem at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, an interesting question, what I'm getting from a lot of candidates, of potential candidates, also what kind of profile should I have? For example, do I need to be a real data scientist to apply for this, or can I be somebody that have a lab experience, for example, a biological lab experience that want to do something, and then?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And of course, because we have for these 5 positions, we have separate committees that review all the applicants. But from my perspective, it would be, if I would get some candidate like that, I would just see, okay, is there some affinity with the topic, with AI or with machine learning or with data science? And of course, has this person affinity with the Caribbean or better with Curaçao? So I will make this balanced assessment, and I guess my colleagues will do that as well, the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any questions from Curaçao to Eric?
Of course, Renato, of course. He spoke very nicely about the topics. And one thing that you mentioned Curaçao many times in your take on what type of candidates we're looking for. But I would like to ask you though, because in the Caribbean, you've been here. So you know that it's a bit unique, but this uniqueness is not only within Curaçao. You also have Aruba, you have Bonaire, you have the Windward Islands. They also have an affinity with the Caribbean and have similar types of challenges with regard to energy transition and water management in general. Do you think they would also be good candidates for this particular position, given that they also understand the context quite well?
Yeah, definitely. So I think my story was a bit biased by Curaçao because I visited Curaçao, but of course I meant the Caribbean region, and anybody who is familiar with the typical problems and challenges and opportunities of this region. So I certainly would not like to restrict this to Curaçao, but the entire Caribbean region around.
Yeah, and the lab is also not focusing only on Curaçao, but also on the 6 Dutch Caribbean islands. So
exactly.
Yeah, that links especially to similar types of challenges that we're facing. Because when we were setting up the ILUSTRE Lab, we also visited the other islands to see what types of challenges they are facing, and they're basically the same. One of which was, how do we handle with water? The same type of challenges we're facing in Curaçao is the same type of challenges they were mentioning on Bonaire, especially with the type of research they were doing on wastewater. And that goes right directly to the person sitting next to me right now, which is a representative of the Commission of Integral Water Management for Curaçao. So their role is to set up a holistic approach, a comprehensive approach to water management on Curaçao. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Ms. Petey Guiller, that is also coincidentally our next speaker. But maybe she can introduce herself, and then before we go over to her presentation.
Hi, good afternoon in the Netherlands. Good morning here in Curaçao. When Aldo asked me to present here today, I was excited about it because I think water is great to talk about, and I can talk hours about water. So that's going to be all right. I'm Petey Guiller. I work at the Met office, and I'm the secretary for the Water Commission here in Curaçao. And what we are trying to do basically is, as Aldo is saying, trying to get an integrated, holistic approach to water management here in Curaçao, since the island has always been a dry island, but water is life. So it's important for us to manage water in a good way, in a consistent way, so that we have water for the future.
And hopefully technology, in this case, ILUSTRE, can help in that. But to get a good understanding of the context in which we are working around water management, we're going to go over to her presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Can everybody see my presentation? Okay. Yes, I'm going to talk about the future of water in Curacao. First, I'm going to talk about who we are as a commission. I'm going to show you what are the water challenges we've encountered here in Curacao, and I'm going to give two teasers on how I think data management or data can help in these areas. The reason we started this commission, this commission in 2016, and the reason we did this is because internationally and nationally, we saw that there is a need for better water management in Curacao. In that time, there was the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development Goals. One of the goals clearly relates to water, the goal number 6. But we also see that here in Curacao, we have hurricanes passing by, so we have issues of flooding, but we also see that there is a lack of fresh water for biodiversity and also for consumption. So that's why we started this commission. And what this commission does is it gives solicited and unsolicited advice to the government, to two ministers in particular, the Minister of Traffic and Transport, and Urban Planning here in Curacao, and the Minister of Environment, Nature, and Health. And also, we follow the advancements of on the subject of water. So we look at what's going on in water in the world, but also in the Caribbean and other islands, and see how we can integrate this in our policy. And one of our main tasks was to develop a policy for water management. So that's what we did. We did a root cause analysis, and we used the SDG indicators for SDG number 6. And we looked at how Curacao was performing in these areas. What we saw is that for targets 6.1 and 6.2, that are the 6.1 is related to safe and affordable drinking water, and 6.2 is about hygiene. We saw that we are scoring very good, so we can achieve these indicators. But when we look at wastewater management, increase the efficiency in freshwater use, and also the implementation of integrated water resource management, and also water for our ecosystems, we saw that we are lagging behind, and that we need to take actions to be able to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals. As Curacao, of course, we also are working towards achieving these goals. So when we dive deeper into the subject, we saw that there are two areas basically that two symptoms. One of the symptoms is that there is a shortage of fresh water. So this reduces to different issues. But one of the things that we saw were that there is a reduced groundwater replenishment. We are dealing with climate change and climate variability, and there is also excessive extraction of groundwater. And based on that, we looked at what are the related root causes, and we saw that these are the areas where we have to work towards for the implementation of a better water management here in Curacao. And where I see that data, and especially real-time data management, can bring solutions is in the policy area for infrastructure for groundwater replenishment. And one of my teasers is going to be about that. I think also on the area of water balance, to know how much water is coming in and how much water is getting out. It's also important to look at data management, or data management can help. We see that if we want to create management instruments to be able to manage water here in Curacao, that data and information, of course, will be relevant. And of course, the information management for groundwater extraction. One of the other symptoms that we saw was that the pollution of existing natural freshwater resources that is strictly tightly related to wastewater disposal and treatment, but also the rainwater runoff on the island. And again, we did an extensive analysis and saw that there are different areas where we can work on solutions. And for example, for the rainwater runoff, again, for policy development, I see that there are possibilities for data management and AI solutions, and also for the part of water management treatment, that there also data management and AI solutions could help. So, I'm a meteorologist, so we work a lot on climate and what is climate bringing. And what we see is that it's especially important for us as people to not look at the averages, the means. The mean temperature will increase, the mean rainfall will increase, but we want to look at the extremes. Because people tend or cannot adapt easily to extremes. So we want to focus on the extremes and then see how we can find solutions to be able to warn people in advance, or also to be able to cope better by better designing, better building, and so forth. So that is why we are looking especially on the climate variability part. And what we did is we did a data analysis of 100 years of data here in Curacao. We do have 100 years of data. People don't think that we have data, but we do. And what we saw is that when we look at the consecutive wet days, we don't see a lot of change. But when we look at the consecutive dry days, then we see that they are increasing. So rainfall is falling less and less on the island. However, we see though that the intensity of the rainfall is increasing. So our infrastructure, how it's currently built, probably will not be able to adapt to the flooding because it's built based on 30 years of old averages. We also looked at the consecutive the cold spell days and the warm spell days. And what we see that the cold spell days are decreasing and the warm spell days are increasing. Right now we are in September. It's usually our hottest months, but since August already, we have been issuing a lot of warnings for heat. So we see that this is the trend that is going on, and in the future it will continue to do so. So water is again important, and also the temperature in this area. So how can data management or AI solutions help in this? We currently have a model where we integrate automatic weather station data. We can put in bogus data, or we can put in past data, and then we can look where it's flooding on the island. In this picture, you can see Curacao, and the red areas, the red channels, are where the water is too high. So in these areas, you would expect flooding. What we want to do is operationalize this system to be able to extract data from real-time automatic weather stations, extract data from our weather radar system, and possibly also extract data from satellite imagery, model imagery, and then run this model as the event is happening, as a hurricane is passing by, or as a tropical storm is passing by, as heavy rain showers are passing by, and then be able to forecast and warn our people much better on which are the areas that are flooding, and how they can help themselves in this matter. So this is one of my teasers where I think that data management for sure can be a solution. And we already have some structures where we integrate the automatic weather station data already, but I think we need to go to a step forward and do real-time data input from not only automatic weather stations, but all types of monitoring systems that we have. The other area where I think that there is a great opportunity is our weather radar right now has the catchment areas of Curacao in it, and it can calculate how much rain has fallen into each basin. With this information and with sensors on the ground on water levels, we could be much better in managing our groundwater extraction. We could forecast how much water is going in, how much water is going out by extraction from other people. And also we could use this data then to, in areas where the groundwater is low, stop the extraction of groundwater for a certain time, or especially when if there is a lot of water, the people then can use this water instead of other water. So I think that in this area also we have possibilities that most certainly data management and intelligence, artificial intelligence can help. So this is it, and I hope you guys liked it.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I certainly enjoyed it. And I really like that you already made the step in trying to identify where ILUSTRE can help in this, because the PhDs are going to be working on the research, and they will definitely be able to contribute in your area as well. I don't know, I would like to start with questions from the Netherlands. Do you have any questions for Petey directly?
I have one question, Petey. My compliments for your presentation. It's very clear, and it's clear also that you have done already a lot with data. What I understand is that you also wish to be involved, of course, in this project. Yeah. So the Commission of Integral Water Management will be supporting this, and everything you did so far can be used as a starting point for the PhD, right? So a lot of companies, but also organizations are involved, not merely, let's say, universities and academics, but we will use let's say, the knowledge of all kinds of organizations to get this PhD positions going. Is that right, Petey? Muted.
We are not hearing
Data
you.
and information.
Oh, no, you were muted.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. Let me start over again. Yes, as I was saying, we think it's important to include, to support this effort, because we developed a policy plan, it's in concept right now. But one of the strategies that we suggest is data and information management. And that's for the mere reason that it is important to have knowledge, have evidence to be able to manage. You cannot manage without information. So we suggest to start a data monitoring and information management to be able to better give management instruments and better manage the water in Curacao. So I think it is relevant that students work with this data, that they get a knowledge about this information, but more importantly, how can we put this into work and operationalize it so that we can better manage water for the future?
Yeah, exactly. It's very good. I really like it. Or did you have a additional point?
Yeah,
there?
I have another short question, Petey. I believe that the insights and knowledge gained from this project can also be used in other parts of the world. And maybe also on the other islands. Is there already, let's say, knowledge sharing or collaboration going on between the islands, or how do you see this?
In Curacao, we focused on this project because for us, water it's always been dry here on the island, so it was logical to work on this area. When we look into the Caribbean, we are, as the Commission, part of the Global Water Partnership Caribbean. And there we, how do you say it? We share this knowledge with other islands and inform them on how we are doing things, but we also learn from them. When it comes to the Caribbean itself, we have not done, with the Dutch Caribbean, I mean, we have not done this yet. But I think it's a very good suggestion that you are saying, and that we should share this knowledge, because I know, for example, that Sint also is coping right now with problems of fresh water, for example.
Great. So that will make Curacao really a living lab for our program. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's definitely the intention that we always had with ILUSTRE, you know, to make it not only benefit our borders, our island borders, but to also benefit the world. You know, there are so many small island developing states that are going through similar situations, not only on water, but also on energy production and sustainable energy. But I do want to give Vanessa Toré a chance to maybe give her input on this, because she's also part of the Integral Water Management organization, the commission.
Yes. No, Petey, thank you for this wonderful presentation where you immediately made use of data that we have and how we can link that and get intelligence out of it to make decisions for the area of water management. Indeed, I'm also part of this commission since its initiation in 2016, and we are also a member of the steering committee of the Global Water Partnership Caribbean, and this program will definitely be shared with all the members of the Global Water Partnership Caribbean to see if we can get them also on board, and I hope we will be able to present to them what we have been doing in Curaçao with data and analysis on freshwater resources, and of course all we are doing to make sure that we approach water as an integrated system and not in silos as it has been forever. So change is on its way, and we look forward to continue this discussion.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. And you may have noticed a change, or you may not have noticed a change. But we have our next speaker already up. She is the CFO of Aqualectra, the integrated utility company of Curaçao, the ones that are responsible for our drinking water, some wastewater management, our electricity. She's going to elaborate a lot more on that. But we are so happy to have her here during this presentation, because she will give us the necessary insights into what they want to achieve as an organization and how technology can help in that. So without further ado, I'd like to give you the floor to introduce yourself before we continue on with your presentation.
Thank you, Aldo. Hi, in Holland.
Hello.
And everybody following the session. Of course, Vanessa as well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks. So I am going to talk about how we are trying to create the utility of the future, our digital ambitions, and what we envision for the future. I'm waiting for the presentation to be up. It's just a few slides and not that much to run us through what we are envisioning for Aqualectra and for Curaçao in terms of water and electricity. Yes, it's coming up, coming up. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So creating the utility of the future. And before we go over to creating the utility of the future, I think it's good to stand still on the industry and where we are and where Curaçao is at in comparison to the world. And I think we can easily say that we're moving from stability to disruption. The utility industry has always been perceived as very solid and dependable, but not really cutting edge or innovative. If you wanted a solid and stable investment, then the utility industry would have been the industry you invest in. The focus was always on reliability and affordability. However, our industry is being reshaped by disruptive forces. Rising costs is one of them. I mean, the prices of the various fuels that we use are rising enormously. That changes the tariff structure, but also changing load patterns is one of the points of concern. And new viable technologies that changes the way we used to produce and distribute water and electricity, regulatory changes, of course, and the growing call to decarbonize, which are some of the aspects that are disrupting our industry. But the future could still be bright, and I think the future is being defined by three bigger trends. Electrification is one of them. Everything we do is being electrified. We drive cars that are electric cars right nowadays. We cook on electric equipment. We do so much with electricity, much more than we used to do in the past. Decarbonization is also one of those three bigger trends, and decentralization. How is Aqualectra responding to this, and what we envision in the future? And I would like to start with how we envision our customers to deal with Aqualectra. So we envision our customers with a personal relationship with their utility company. This personal relationship is managed and powered by a dedicated smart home platform, which is accessible through multiple devices, such as your phone or your laptop or even your Alexa speaker. But we also envision that this smart home platform could be personalized and data-driven to allow a customer experience that is in real time, as well as services such as home energy management, which are enabled by artificial intelligence, which is one of the words that I've heard the most today. How do we envision the employee of Aqualectra? We envision a new generation, a tech-savvy professional who relies on connected yet independent systems. Those systems that collaborate with bots and integrate with AI to accomplish tasks. We think that automated processes will take over and free up employees from routine work, enabling them to focus on what truly matters, which are more highly complex and customized, unpredictable tasks. From recruitment to succession planning, so from inception to the end, from the beginning up to the moment they leave the company, the employees' work should be powered by digital experiences, and their performance should be measured in real time, as well as learning and development. Let me go over to our assets. How would our assets be in this new redefined utility of the future? So we envision real-time situational awareness of generation, transmission, and distribution, and our distribution assets. We envision that our operational staff not only manages assets, but also manages data. We also envision that a network of devices such as drones and cameras and other types of devices that provide continuous stream of data on every status and performance of our power plants, our towers, our poles, transformers, and other equipment. We think that dynamic visualizations that display ambient temperature, air quality, voltage information, and all of those moving targets and information, such as vegetation growth and other data and operations, are the ones that are going to fuel the decision making and performance or potential safety hazards, of course. And all of these analytics that use artificial intelligence and machine learning, combining all of these data together with plant limits and external data, market pricing, etc., should fuel our process to determine appropriate actions in the end. Notice that I haven't given this slide a title. So I'm giving it right now, after we've run into what we think this utility of the future should look like for its customers, the employees, and the assets. Innovation is one of the words that truly marks and silver lines it all, creating a digital foundation and culture. 3 specific words that we think that we've embedded in our strategic focus going forward. And I'll give you a glimpse on how Aqualectra focuses its strategy in the future. So our vision is to lead Curaçao into the future by transforming its utility. And it might sound very ambitious, leading Curaçao into the future. But I think we are in the capacity, and we owe it, and we have the responsibility to our community to do this by transforming ourselves. Being the only utility company, electricity and water on the island, transforming ourselves will automatically help transform our community, and that will automatically help lead Curaçao into the future. Our purpose, fueled by our purpose, which is to fundamentally contribute to the well-being of the citizens of Curaçao. So what have we done? We have chosen 5 strategic pillars to guide us through the coming years and to realize this utility of the future that I've just painted for you. One of the first things that we will focus on is our core business, to a resilient and reliable operations. Envision here a further enhancement of our renewable capacity, increasing it to beyond 50% of the complete island's consumption, but also lowering our carbon footprint by changing the fuel source we use. We are moving away from a fossil fuel to gas, and then afterwards to continue to even move forward into greener fuel sources. But one of the first things is amplifying our renewable energy sources. But the customer, being a customer-centric company, converting ourselves into a customer-centric company is also very important. Offering excellent customer experience built on effortless interaction would be our focus. That smart home platform, which enables our customers to experience us, to have a personal relationship with us through automation, is one of the aspects that will fuel this strategic pillar forward. But right in the middle of it, and that's where the cultural part comes in, it's not, it's right in the middle of the 5 strategic pillars, would be people leadership, creating an exemplary workforce in a thriving work environment. And that's where the cultural part comes in, from a right-sizing project to a complete cultural change, leading to even new facilities, will help us structure this strategic initiative as much as possible to have that technological savvy professional that we're looking for. Innovation, like I just said, ignite and embed innovation to move boundaries. We've implemented a new ERP in the last few years. We're moving towards rolling out our complete advanced metering infrastructure, and we are moving slowly but steadily to creating that digital foundation that will fuel this utility of the future. And last but not least, being a company like Aqualectra, corporate social responsibility could not be left behind. Driving the growth and development of our community is one of our key missions to, in the end, fundamentally contribute to the well-being of the citizens of Curaçao. Thank you for your attention, and there might be questions.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very, very good, and I really like your ambition, and especially what you want to mean for the society of Curaçao. One thing that I would like to start with, which is a bit more difficult one, because being a utility organization that's solely responsible, so many islands face the same thing. You have one producer. So you have a social responsibility as well. Yep. For people that may or may not be able to participate. with this decarbonization that's taking place, electrification, and many people cannot really benefit from these advancements because of their socio-economic status. How does Aqualectro view the social exclusion that takes place in this case?
That's a very good question, Aldo. I think we are already very proud of reaching 30% of all the island's consumption being produced by renewable sources, and that will only grow. The question would be how you reach that point. Will you decentralize at a point where you won't even need those bigger capacities, those chunks of, for instance, wind farms and electricity plants, and there's a social question there. There's a social challenge there that needs to be addressed. Decentralization and up to the point of being completely decentralized, having, for instance, solar panels on each and every rooftop of a house in a community would also mean that the rooftops are eligible for solar panels. And that's a social question that we need to address too. As a company, I think our responsibility is towards our community as a whole, but also towards our environment. Those things, I think we cover by investing in more renewable capacity, which in the end will stabilize and lower the tariffs for that community we serve.
Yeah.
However, decentralization up to the point of having solar panels on each and every rooftop has a social question to it. Would each and every rooftop be eligible for solar panels as well?
And how do you make the decision which ones are, which aren't?
Exactly.
Then you get in the realm of politics. Like
that's true.
And that's the nature of the island. So I don't know, Renato, do you have any questions from your side?
I don't know, here at the table, are there any questions? Eric.
I have a specific question because you mentioned drones, and I was imagining a future with these drones for Aqualectra. So for instance, inspecting transformers or wind turbines. Now I could imagine in 5 years you would have these drones and an operator is remotely controlling this drone to inspect certain sites. And then after a certain while you could have fully automatic drones. So how do you see this future for the coming 10 years of the use of this kind of technology?
Well, that's exactly how you're laying it out now. We need to start by just the ones that are being managed by our operators inside, and then slowly but steadily moving towards the more automatic and remote ones. The start would be, because right now, at this point in time, we are not using them for plant inspection or any other inspection. So we are using drones specifically for our GIS system, and that would be then the geographical information system, which is a very robust one on the island. So we are employing these devices as well in our processes like that. But the step further is by inspecting plants indeed, and equipment, and a step further would be a fully automated, remotely managed equipment to do that. So yes, that's exactly how we are playing it out now. Yeah.
Okay, but if I may, I have a follow-up question, because suppose that one of these PhD students would be appointed to this task. What would be the first thing that this PhD student could investigate to help to facilitate this trajectory?
We could. I think we need to start focusing. So the first thing would be, remember, we're not only a production company, but also a distribution company. So we could choose, and that's a choice that has not been made yet. You could choose to focus on production facilities to inspect, but you could also choose to focus on distribution. I wouldn't want to go much further, but my personal choice would be to start on production, and that's because it's a secluded area. You can test it out. If a drone like that falls down, or there are issues with the drone, you can, it's there. Our production facilities are very much compacted into one area as well, and the renewable facilities are also in a more stretched area, but they are also concentrated in an area. So I would start there, and then afterwards moving towards the distribution facilities as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Very clear.
One last thing before I go back to you, Renato. One thing that you mentioned correctly is the employee. What does the employee look like? This is mainly a curiosity question from my side. It's not really technology related, but on Curacao we say the old rope ties to the new one, and that's how. So it tackles the transition from the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things, the new employee. Have you guys looked at how that transition will take place and how to make it smoothly? Because stability is one of the premier responsibilities of the company.
And that is indeed one of the biggest challenges. We used to say that, I mean, a collector as a company has overcome a lot of challenges. And past challenges that we've overcome, I see them as, it was back then machines and financial statements and those kind of things that you fight a different way. But now the challenge is people. So it's not machines and paperwork anymore and compliance, but people, getting your people up to par. So that's the most difficult part of it, indeed. One of the things that we've noticed is that just throwing in new people already changes and shifts perspectives and moves boundaries a little forward. I'm mostly responsible for the commercial and the financial part, and I see it in the commercial part specifically. By throwing in a few new people that are dynamic, that are tech savvy, that has those capabilities and competences that you're looking for that employee of the future, already sets the stage for the other ones to move. However, there will be those that would realize that this is not for me anymore. I cannot keep up. And you need to have a program in place then as a company to help them move out as well. So it's a balance between one, having that vision, where do you want to be at, and vocalizing that vision in a way that people understand, throwing in a few new ones that can carry that vision for you, and then pair it with programs that will help those that cannot see themselves anymore in that vision truly move out in a decent and human way.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the answer. So I think that leads directly to our next speaker that handles with this interaction with AI and the human being. So we're not only going to look at the employees, but also the customers, of the consumers of water and energy. How are they going to change based on these new developments around technology and AI? So I don't know, Renato, did you want to take over?
Yes, thank you very much, Aldo. Also, thank you very much, Naisha, for your contribution. Very interesting. Yes, this brings us indeed to the next topic of social adoption, and I would like to turn to Claudia Zucca for this. Claudia, you know, we are a very international school, very international university. We have a lot of nationalities, and you are yourself from Italy. So what made you leave the beautiful island of Sardinia to join Eric's group of AI research? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Sure. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I was born and raised in Italy, but before moving to the Netherlands, I lived in many other places in Europe, like the UK and Ireland, Hungary. So I consider myself a little bit of an international person, definitely a European person. Why the Netherlands? Because it's actually a very good place to be. Like there are the best universities in the world. Many of the Dutch universities are among the best in the world. And the environment here is really alive, and like a lot of startups, a lot of innovation takes place in the Netherlands. It's one of the most fervent places in Europe for sure, and JADS is definitely active part of that, so it's really exciting to be here.
And you like it in the Netherlands?
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay. well, thank you for being here, and also for accepting this important task of investigating social adoption. You heard, already online that it's very crucial to do this in the right way. Can you take us a little bit and show us what it's all about?
Yes,
what you will do.
Very happy to. Can I get the clicker? Yeah. I have a few slides that I would like to use to help my discussion. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I would like to discuss a little bit of a specific angle of the problems. That is, what are the social consequences of innovation? Innovation, broadly speaking, as something that is changing the way we live. So I would like to say that we live in the age of innovation. So we experience innovation all the time in history, but in the last century, in the last 50 years, we had an enormous amount of innovation. And that's why it's particularly relevant now to focus on what this means for people, not just for the technical side of it, the way you develop it, but literally for the way it changes our world and the way we interact with the world around us. So we can benefit of these opportunities to a larger extent. Another important thing to say is that we not only have many innovations in this time that we're living, but that this innovation spreads really fast. So this meeting that we are having now, it's very international, and this could have been unimaginable only 30 years ago. So everything we do now has a very large impact, and this is obvious. It's obvious that this is going to affect to a very large extent everything. And if we compare our life back in the days to our life now, it's entirely different. So just I have an example here. Just think of a person born in Europe in the 20s, but not just in Europe, in general. So this person would have had touch a phone or a television for the first time when he was already 26. But in the same lifespan, at an age around 8 years old, this person will have had internet or a mobile phone with internet. So this is completely different from what we had in the past. And it's obvious that we need some support for that. It's too much to handle without an appropriate support. So why social sciences? Well, it's sort of obvious. Social sciences study people in from different points of view, in different ways, but it's about people, and it's about how people interact, first of all, with each other, and then with the world, and also with the way the world changes. So how technology affects the world, and through that relationship between people and all the environment around. So social science is actually a fundamental tool to understand these problems that are rising now, and to help finding solutions to live a better life in a very simple way. The kind of social sciences that we are interested here at JADS are obviously computational. We love data, we do cool stuff that matters with data, and we have data. This is the privilege of our time. Data is one of the technological innovation that we are benefiting from in the last 20 years. So we had the data revolution, we had the computer revolution. Without computers, well, nice ideas, we don't know what to do with them. There is no time to compute these manually. Thanks to the advent of computers, now we can do much more. This was unimaginable before. So we have all this data, and this data is mostly about human, obviously, not only, but the amount of data that we collect about human is enormous. Just very simple example, just think about social networks like Facebook, Twitter, or what the very young engage with, stuff like TikTok. They produce an enormous amount of data. And this is something that can help us extensively to understand how the world is changing and how technologies are affecting behavior, and to basically see how we can improve people's life, helping them to use technology in a better way. So just to understand a little bit better what is computational social science, it's social science. So the questions are the same as before. So how people interact with the world and with each other, and with change in general, but together with computational, with computational science. So how we can integrate the usage of computers with questions about people. And then we use some new tools, relatively new tools, that are called complexity science. And basically, these tools help us to understand how we can explain something that is not straightforward. So just think about something like obesity. Obesity, it's maybe obvious. You eat too much, you become obese, but it's not obvious, because the reason why you might want to eat a lot are really not straightforward. It's not something that you do because you want to become obese. It's something that you cannot prevent. That's a complex problem, because the reasons that generate this problem are literally enormous and like many and intertwined and very difficult to navigate. So with all these tools that help us to navigate complex problem, we can approach how the world is changing and try to find solutions. So this is one example of what complexity science can do. It can map down problems and help us understand them. So if we observe relationships in a formal way, so because we can literally interpret this as a mathematical model, we can much better understand how things are structured and find patterns there and find causal relationships that help us understand the dynamics of problem surging. And for instance, this is another example that I want to show. So this data is coming from the dark web, as is just mapping out how people sell illegal stuff in the dark web. There is clearly a pattern here, and visualizing it in this shape, we can actually spot it. And when we spot it, we can understand it and engage with this process and improve what we can do for society. So, another example. So if we are interested in causality rather than patterns, we can use other tools. This is a causal loop diagram that literally introduces the idea of causality there, because here we are observing causes. So basically, this is a process for establishing a new type of education in Scotland. This is like a study that I've been working on. And this is mapping down how this new policy was established in Scotland, step by step, observing relevant variable introduced by stakeholders involved in the process. So this is one of the many things that is possible to do with computational social science and complexity tools. After understanding these problems, we can intervene. So first you understand, then you try to change, to like introduce something new and promote positive social change and make the world a better place. That's what we would like to do, right? Ultimately, all of us, that's our goal, potentially. And so getting back to our topic, artificial intelligence, it's here and it's going to stay. It's not going to go away because it's too useful. There is no way that it's gonna go away just because some people might object that might introduce new complication in the world. Okay, probably we cannot really have AI making us like roasted chicken yet. Not even sure about it, but it's very useful in many other ways. And so this is an image of that movement that 250 years ago, more or less, tried to destroy machines during the Industrial Revolution in the UK. This was the Luddites movement. And doing this now in modern time, trying to destroy new technology because we are afraid of it or because it creates complication, is just really pointless. And what we want to achieve here is avoiding people trying to destroy technology and destroy evolution with new tools and with some support and some understanding to make this as smooth as possible. So AI is a new variable in a complex system that we are observing, and with some knowledge and some understanding, we can make it work in a much smoother way and in a much more effective way. Yeah, so we can intervene in the system, and that's what we are going to try to do with the part of the project I'm involved in. So getting to talk for a few seconds about the project. This is the title of this part, is Social Support for the Real World Introduction of AI in Critical Infrastructure. What is it about in a few points? It's about understanding, first of all. So we are going to collect relevant data because we love data, so why not? And then we want to help this introduction of AI because we want both accelerate the transition, but also make it as sustainable as possible for humans, in humans broadly speaking. So people that benefit from water, for instance, but also people that work in the environment that like support the water supply. And we want also support stakeholders in the process. There are many stakeholders involved in this process, and all of them have different needs. So it's important to try to understand what these needs are and try to meet them as much as possible. And finally, we would like to explain the condition under which innovation finds its place in a new environment. So what we are studying here with this project in the Caribbean can help other places, other projects to succeed, because we can like prepare some blueprints for future research and future people that want to engage with these processes. And yes, thank you for your attention. And I kind of love my final slide with AI and people.
Thank you very much, Claudia. I can only say wow at this point, because it's very interesting and very crucial to tackle this point of social adoption. I have one question to start with, and then I leave the floor to you guys, and also to the people in the cruise. What I understood is that with your instruments or your models, you can actually make a blueprint of something that enables the adoption of new technology. Yeah. So where will you start then? When you have ILUSTRE and you have all these complex situations and all these complex organizations, where will you start? I mean, you have Aqualectra, you have the Integral Water Management Commission, you have maybe other companies. Where do you start such a complex system or such a complex problem?
So I will start involving all of them, potentially in different settings, not all of them at once, in explaining to us what they see, what do they see in this project, what are their goals for the project, and what do they think they are the most important factors for them. So this will be my very first point. There is some research done about the effects of AI, but this is slightly innovative. So what we need is new knowledge about the problem. First of all, before we rely on any established methodology, we need to get a first very good understanding of where we are. And the only way to do it is to involve the people that are actually part of it and listen to them and collect this kind of data in the first place. That will be my answer.
So ambition, and then looking at where the bottlenecks are probably, or the potential bottlenecks, and then trying to focus on them and solve them. And how's then the interaction with the other PhDs who are doing, let's say, the technical research?
They also need to be part of this discussion.
To adopt this, of course.
Exactly, they need to be part of this discussion because they are those intervening in the system. So we understand the system, they intervene in the system, so they provide variables that are actually affecting the process that we're mapping down in the first place.
Yeah, so it's a real enabler, and this group of PhDs have to work closely together, I guess.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I like the link also to the complexity, because like I said in the beginning, I did also an analysis about how innovation is increasing complexity, and that the adoption for people is something very important, because like you mentioned, so much things are changing also in organization. I think Naisha mentioned also, you are continually changing into the organization, so people can be also change tired, and how do you manage that the new innovation is helping them to be more successful in the work? And I see now two complexities, I think, with solutions coming from ILUSTRE, because you have on one hand internal employees that you need to manage to make sure that they can do the work better and use AI to be more effective. But the impact on consumers, how do we make it for consumers understandable that AI can give them recommendations to use water at a certain moment, use electricity at a certain moment. How do we increase that acceptance? I think there are two different research trajects.
And are they ready for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even in the Netherlands, we already have those problems. So
exactly.
I see a big opportunity for the coming 10 years because ILUSTRE is not only 5 years. And yeah, my question is it two different projects indeed to say, okay, you focus on the internal employees because the AI transition internally for the utility companies is something you focus on the human resources internally. And then the consumer part, I think the one of the research to, okay, for the recommendation systems, etc., is more on the consumer part. So is that indeed like that, or is that like you create a blueprint that can be used in both?
So I see these two parts as two sides of the same problem. They are enormously connected, even if they are pointing out different perspective on it. I'm also involved in the recommendation system project, and I actually think this is a very good way of connecting these two streams, because basically the recommendations are let me use this word, prepared by the stakeholders, and the customers are going to benefit from them. So this is already a relationship that is in place. But I think we can understand it even to a larger extent if we pay a little bit more attention also to the customers. It's obviously much more difficult to collect information about the customers. There are many more than the people involved in the development of the project. But still, we can definitely try to understand their point of view as well, and to, like, for instance, to pilot the recommendations that we can give them and improve them based on feedback provided by the customers. This is just one example, exactly.
Yeah, clear.
Yeah,
are there any questions maybe from Curaçao?
Yes. Yes, Renato. It was very interesting, and especially the way Dr. Zuka explained it, the interactions between the organizations here. Yes, there has been research done before, but mostly in, let's say, Northwestern European context, which is vastly different than what we have here on the island. So do you see a lot of primary research intense work going on, and especially in the beginning of the PhD? And what type of person, next to the qualification, what type of person do you have to be in order to be a successful PhD candidate?
Well, you need to be a person that has a good knowledge of the Caribbean, definitely, and of the situation there. That will help very much, but also needs to be a person that can talk to people in order to get as much information as possible from them, because you need to trust the person you are talking to in order to really explain what you are thinking about a certain situation, a certain project, and be able to express this information in an understandable way. But at the same time, you need to be a person with a good knowledge of data science, because this information that we are collecting need to be analyzed in a quantitative way, in a data science way. And this is not obvious. So a combination of these three factors is the ideal candidate.
I hope that didn't scare off anybody.
Thank you very much, Aldo. Are there any more questions from Curaçao?
So I don't know if Vanessa or Petey, did you have any more questions around that? Vanessa?
No.
No, so we're assuming no. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, maybe then let's turn to our last topic of this event, and that's the discussion on, yeah, how can we turn ILUSTRE into a success? And of course, we already started with the discussion more or less, because adoption, I think, is one of the crucial factors in this. But in order to get adoption done or off the ground, there are a lot of success factors, I believe. So also the type of PhD that we are looking for. That was actually one question I had to Eric. What type of PhDs do you foresee? It's partly already answered the question, but can you a little bit elaborate on that, because we need very good research, of course, but
yeah. So there's a difference between what I want and what I expect. But I think it will be a very heterogeneous group. But my main concern is that they have affinity with the Caribbean. I think that's really very important. And of course, from a scientific perspective, there are all kinds of conditions or soft requirements. As I said before, some affinity with data science and knowledge about data science or for social science. But as I said in the beginning, we will look at each applicant carefully to see if it fits and how it fits and how we can make it fit, because we are really dedicated, and that's the difference with other projects that we have. Then the focus is on making sure that I get this Nobel Prize, but in this case it's more making sure that this is beneficial to the goal of this project.
Yeah,
and that's to make a better life possible, first for the Caribbean and then for the rest of the world.
I know from other big projects, as you already referred to, that co-location is very important, and that's really maybe something we should strive for in this, also in this project. Although I know it's different, difficult.
It's difficult, but we have to face that challenge and to be creative to deal with that.
Yeah. Co-location on the Caribbean islands, Rigo.
Yeah, I
How
think
can we do that?
yeah, I think that's one of the important things related to adoption. Also, like Claudia mentioned, I think that if you do the research on distance and you do only sometimes a kind of measure point and you go there, then maybe you miss some important aspects that you need to incorporate to make the more human-centric solutions and applicable solutions for the industry. And as a transformation manager, the last 10 years, I see that we continuously transforming businesses with cloud, with ERP systems, with mobile, and now we are bringing data science on top of it. And I think one of the most important aspects is to make sure that people understand, very simple, what is data science, and not be scared, because during the conversations with a lot of businesses or business leaders, they don't really understand what data science, but also on the kitchen table, talking with my friends, etc., they don't understand it. So if I need to tell them, okay, the machine will help you to do something, it is very difficult to accept it. And I think you need to start with education. I think that's one of the important parts for ILUSTRE also, is not only focusing on the research, but make sure that we can apply things and then use that application to learn the people how to do things. And I'm coming from the island, and island people are very skeptic sometimes because they really want to see things, and so we are still a little bit scared for change, a little bit more than
a little bit more hesitant.
Yeah, so you really need to take them by hand. I think that's key for success, and not keep on the research area only. I think that's the base element to make it a success. Make sure that the translation or the transformation is going hand by hand with feedback, interaction, and guide the people through.
But I believe that interaction is one of the important keywords here.
Yeah.
And interaction you get, of course, when people can meet, when people talk to each other. And this sounds like a community, creating a community.
Yeah.
So the ILUSTRE community. How do you see it? Or maybe Aldo, maybe you can say something about it.
Yeah, exactly. When Eric was explaining it, it really it came over to me around how we are also working with the University of Curacao. That relationship is also very beneficial because they have a core responsibility of educating the youth that is here, and ILUSTRE is also contributing to that. We also got questions from Aruba asking of their profile fitting in to what ILUSTRE wants to help, and if they can be part of it. And I said, of course, because being from Aruba is an island which is isolated, which has one producer, one distributor. So the similarities are there. And for example, with regard to education on Aruba, the University of Aruba can also play a part in the ILUSTRE Lab. So so we're not only focusing on directly on applications for production and distribution and consumption, but also the educational part. That's also something that I wanted to bring forward, that's also a key success factor for ILUSTRE and its effects in general on society.
Yeah. And do you believe that getting in people from other islands needs, let's say, physical meeting each other? Because it's, of course, always a challenge already when you have different islands, which are very apart from each other. So I remember when I visited Curaçao that going to Bonaire was easy, but Sint Maarten was really a challenge.
Yes. With infrastructure, it is challenging. But now with going out of the pandemic, we have better connections. We have more airlines flying. So the connections are getting better. Technology helps in this, but like you said, we were imagining an ILUSTRE event where all of these islands were coming together and exchanging ideas and how we can help each other. So ILUSTRE event, you should look forward to it by next year. Where all these different islands and brains and the knowledge from the Netherlands and maybe other universities around the world that want to participate in this are welcome to come.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I can emphasize also on that interaction, but also the collaboration that we just discussed. I think one of the things that we work on is the last years is also to create that network, because we have providers of industry specialists in Netherlands that want to contribute because they have technology that they want to test on a living island. And from Curaçao or from the island, we have the companies that also want to understand the technologies and then also collaborate for the implementation of new applications. So how are we bringing those groups together? On one hand, the European knowledge, and on the other hand, the area where you can test the thing in a small case and then bring that back to Europe. I think we work very hard to create that consortium, and that's the key, because I think by growing that consortium in the region, also if you have the multiple islands, I'm not thinking only about the Caribbean islands, but also looking, for example, to Barbados, to St. Lucia. These are also, they have also utility companies using the same machines. They have experienced the same climate problems for water also. So how do you create those communities and start collaborating on the same challenge? And use the research to get data, because then you get more basis for the research, and then bring that information back and interact to get feedback to improve. I think that's the key for bringing that level. It will be a challenge to manage all those partners together, because everybody is on a different level, what we see. But how can we,
It also sounds a little bit like your academy idea that you had, some sort of ILUSTRE Academy. Of course, we support that very much from the JADS side, so we can bring together a sort of data science AI academy together with a community that investigates the implementations for renewable energy and sustainable technology in general. It sounds a little bit like that.
Yeah, we can elaborate a little bit for the audience also what we discussed during our discussion, because a lot of discussions during the transition to describe what we want to do with ILUSTRE, touch base with the companies in Curaçao, touch base with the academies of education centers. And we thought, okay, on one hand with JADS, we are focusing on the data science aspect, but during the transformation, we need change managers. We need people that can guide the people through the transition. We need people that know how to manage processes, because processes will change. We need to document new processes, we need to incorporate new policies, etc. So you need different kind of people. And what I said in the beginning also, most of our talent from the Caribbean are going abroad to study, and maybe 10–20% is coming back.
Yeah, so we should keep them to help make this transition.
Yeah, so if we, from the education part, we say, okay, we start with short term, do professional education to make sure we can increase the knowledge. And on the long term, we use a kind of academy to create different learning paths. That's what we discussed with the University of Curaçao. Also, okay, how can we implement some learning path to support energy transition? It is a challenge, because it's not something that you can do by the night, but it is a feasible ambition or dream that I think that can be made, and we are working on that. And you see that, the short term is more professional education, do the collaboration, create the communities, and then think, okay, how can we create that future path? I think what Eric did also giving a lecture for high school classes together with Aldo is already planting the seed on a lower level.
Yeah.
And yeah, we need to work on that. It is not easy.
So every type of education should be involved. That's what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, I think you should have,
including maybe vocational education, but also, let's say, scientific degrees, and those spin-offs can then help creating or get this flywheel going.
Yeah, because I can imagine that the PhD candidates can start doing classes there,
Yeah.
and you get a kind of a lower level education. You can start already with a secondary school, high school, and then go to the master education. Then you have the cherry on the cake, and with PhD and professional doctorates. But I think we are missing that basis, that foundation.
So this is a start to get a bigger thing going, actually,
Yeah.
because 5 PhDs, of course, is only the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are not striving only for scientific education, but making it much bigger.
Much bigger.
One thing I want to throw in, and I know that one of my colleagues from MKB Data Lab is also listening, is that we can use the talent of students, of master and bachelor students, to help SME companies with the data challenges.
Yeah.
So maybe that's also another angle. So taking the whole mixture of possibilities there. Well, it sounds like a great vision. It sounds like a dream, but we are starting with it. Vanessa, can you say something about this? What do you think about this? What are the success factors according to you when you hear this? Is this all feasible or just a dream? Hopefully Vanessa is still there.
Check, I'm not sure. Because I can't see the participants, so but what I can say from our interactions with the government, because when you were here, we also got the support from the minister, even as published by their own communication channels. So the government really believes in this. The strategic objectives of Curaçao from the Ministry of Economic Development has a few layers, I think 6 in total, but the ones that are relevant for us is the development and export of technology, education services. And, you know, so we are because we're contributing to that, we have their support for it. So it's such a good development for the island that we truly believe that will not only help in the energy transition, but also the technology adoption, to make it a bit smooth. Because as Rigo was saying, we collaborate with energy distributors in the Netherlands, for example, that have already gone through the adoption of new technologies. What were some of the lessons that they learned along the way, so that we don't have to make those same mistakes? So that's the power of the collaboration, and that's why it's very important that we bring these people together and have the necessary support from the government that I think we do have, which makes everything run a bit smoother here on the island.
And I think, although you're not only working on what you were saying, but you're also working on the workforce, the transition of the current workforce, because right now we have a certain type of workforce, but in the future we will need to transition to another type of workforce and another other types of jobs that are coming in. So I think that transition is also very important. And I think Curaçao supports that also.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. What other factors do we want to discuss, or is it all clear?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, so this is for Claudia and Rigo, both of you. One of the things that came up is that you want to understand the adoption of recommendations. So Rigo, do you think that the companies or the industry in Curaçao?
Do you think that the industries in Curaçao have the basis using which they can directly apply or reach out to the people and observe whether they are adopting the recommendations or not, or do they still have to do a bit before we reach to that level?
That is a very good question. like I mentioned, you see in the region that the companies are on different levels, or on current infrastructure, but also on current data they have, etc. If I talk from Agroelectra, where I had the opportunity to work as a project manager for the ERP implementation, I can say that, for example, Agroelectra have a very good infrastructure in base, because we have a geographic infrastructure system that can be used, for example, to very easily create a digital twin. So you can start stimulating data and do recommendations based on that. We have a very huge information about the consumer data from electricity and water, because that's used also for the billing, etc. So you have that data in place, and I think to use that data and create a recommendation system for supporting customers to be more effective in water usage or be more effective in electricity usage is something very easy to do now, because the data is there. I can imagine, for example, that if I have a leakage at home and I'm normally using like 50 or 60 cube of water every month, and then out of the sudden I'm using 1,000 cube of water, that maybe the system should send me an alarm and say, okay, you need to check something, because are you filling a swimming pool or something? And it's not only for the consumer, but also for Agroelectra, I think for utility company is good, because then you reduce the leakage loss, because it's not only at the customer side, but also in the distribution area, you can see all those things happening. So I think the data is there, but how do you convert that data to managerial decision points? And then give the people, the operators in the network, but also the consumer, because those are two different applications, how to bring that there. So I think the data is there. If I look to what I know, I understand that, because I was working with all those integration for the systems. And we discuss also with TNO, for example, they show us that the digital twin they had on the island already, but they don't have the utility information in it yet.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah, so there is a lot of infrastructural things available, data points available, that we already try to bring them together so we can do the cool stuff with it.
Connection is also very important, yeah. And we do that also via this project. Yeah. True. Well, I think Aldo.
Just to add to that, that's where the research of Dr. Zuka comes into play. The adoption of this technology. You know, there are certain challenges that we face that are probably unique to this type of context, you know, some small island development states. So that research, once it's conducting, starts, we get certain insights to make the adoption of technology a bit easier, because usually our roadmap for technology adoption comes from contexts, you know, that are either from the US or Europe, which doesn't really apply that well to our context. And then we ask ourselves, why has it failed? And you know, and that's part of the reason we should be very appreciative from the Dutch Research Council, that they really required us to take a look at the social science aspect of these technologies. So they required us to really think about, okay, so you're coming with this new technology, but how are you planning to actually adopt it? What are some of the challenges that you're going to face adopting this new technology, and what's going to even prevent you from doing it? And how do you overcome it? So that's why I think our approach for ILUSTRE is very good, is comprehensive. So it has a really good chance of success, given this approach, especially with the question that was asked from the audience regarding organizations being ready. It has to do with the people adopting it, yes or no. And hopefully Dr. Zuka can bring us such a really good roadmap that's applicable to small island developing states. So not only Curacao, but all of these islands that are, you know, isolated places with smaller populations, with poor connections to other countries that really have that island mentality of tend to look inside rather than interconnection. You know, so once we have that research done on the technology adoption, it doesn't only help in this context with the energy transition, but also with all the other technologies that are emerging.
Yes, thank you very much, Aldo. Yes, Asitaf.
We have another question from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, could you please elaborate on planning for the PhD? For instance, the internet starting date and so on.
Yeah, maybe I can say something about that.
Sure.
So the intended starting date is January the 1st of 2023, but it could also start a bit later. So we're not strict on that, but that's the intended starting date. And I guess the second part of the question was the planning of a PhD trajectory. So a typical PhD, so let me first tell you what the typical PhD trajectory is. That's you start with literature search and understanding what the problem is and look at what others have done. And then you develop your own algorithm and test it and see if it's better than existing algorithms. That's the kind of indoor AI research thesis that you have. But I guess in this context, it will be a bit different. I think what we said before, it's important to connect with each other. So the first thing would be to connect with other PhD students, connect with the local stakeholders, know what data is available, and then do the literature study. That would be a different step. And other than that, the iteration will be coming up with either an algorithmic solution, potential solution, or do an analysis, as in Dr. Suka's project, test it in the practice, see if it works, and then depending on who is involved in the project, first do a kind of simulated study and then a real life test if the thing works out as it should work. And of course, this is something that would happen in collaboration with the social sciences research, because this is something you cannot only do on your own. So we foresee a lot of collaboration within these PhD trajectories in the later stage.
Yeah, there's one element I want to bring in, not as an answer to this question, but in general, we are creating a consortium of all kinds of partners, and not only academic, but also industrial partners. And yeah, for those who are listening or want to spread the word, this consortium is still open for collaboration. So we get a lot of attention lately, and yeah, people can approach us if they want to collaborate in this field. Only if they see Curaçao as a living lab where they want to test out their innovation, like a lot of companies wish to have, then we're open to for this collaboration. So please approach us. Every one of us you can approach. Yeah. but our emails are in the slide deck, and we will make sure you will get it. And let's have a discussion. So I just wanted to throw this in as a message. Well,
yeah, so it wasn't only...
Maybe, oh, sorry, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry.
Just like a regular Zoom meeting.
Exactly, I don't hear you. Yes, for example, I mean, just to elaborate on what you said, using the island as a living lab, you know, we can name one example of a German company that has tested certain technologies in island context, but in European context. So that means that island does not have an international airport, an international port. They don't have the types of things that other islands face, and they want to test it out and see how their technology works in this type of context before they roll it out in bigger markets. So this living lab is also an opportunity for these types of organizations that want to approach and want to test their technologies, because these technologies, if they test it, and it helps here as well. So that's why we thought it was a very good opportunity, a very good conversation that we have with them. And hopefully we have more of them, and we are open for it as well.
Yeah, so the ambition is bigger than just to focus on the island. Right? So it's clear. Well, I think it's good to wrap up, Aldo, if that's also okay with you. If there aren't any more questions online either or in the audience. Who's I? Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I was very excited listening to everything that was said, and I agree with most of the things. But what I'm wondering as a data scientist is that in Europe, we are being faced more and more about the legal environment and the legal framework within which we operate. And of course, in the EU, we have the GDPR, and there's the AVG, which is a kind of translation of that into the Dutch setting. And I'm wondering whether in the island in Curaçao, actually, this also applies, or is there a different framework? Is that something that we should be considering?
Good question.
That is a very good question, and that is a question that we also discuss most of the time with the organizations in the region. Is that as a company also we try to follow the same GDPR rules, because if you are, for example, managing consumer data, or you are using that consumer data, so from GDPR you need to scrap the data and then you can do things, but how do you link it back then in your analysis? So we try to follow the same rule, but you see that in terms of legislation, the Dutch Antillian islands are kind of similar legislation that Netherlands. So you need to assume that GDPR should come there. But the adoption within the companies itself is not far yet. So it can be that some companies are not really following because it's not strict, like in Netherlands, that you really need to follow GDPR. But in that sense, I think from the long term, we need to assume from our research and make sure that we use the same logic. And then for the analysis, I think on the data, we need to check out smart things to still collect the data and do the analysis and then bring it back.
May I interpret that there's a bit more room for experimentation in the Netherlands?
Yes, yes, I must say yes, but I think maybe Aldo can say that also. But that's my experience from the discussions, because we try to follow always that strict rule. As from Netherlands, okay, this is the structure, this you need to do. But say sometimes, okay, there is some space.
Well, yes,
I believe as a university from Europe, we are also bound to the formal GDPR ruling.
Yeah,
I think that's the case of GDPR. In general, that's the case. But
that's for our research, but for the, let's say, the solutions, of course, within which they must operate.
Yeah,
it's a different question.
Yeah, it's a different.
Nobody hears this.
But it also touches upon IP and how to use IP. Yeah, so let's say generically produced IP is can mostly be published. Yeah, that's important for a PhD. But proprietary IP, that's, let's say, when it's close to the market, cannot be published, and that stays within a company, and that's the way of working that we have adopted, and that we are used to work with. So that's I don't foresee any problems there.
Yeah,
I see you looking skeptically.
No. I was more in line with what Eric mentioned. How much room is there for experimentation, basically?
Yeah.
But thank you.
We will learn how to.
Well, if I just elaborate.
Aldo have.
Oh, sorry.
You hear me? You hear me?
Aldo is muted.
Just a moment, Aldo.
No. Muted. Hear me?
Most of them hear me. Yes.
Oh, okay. No, you don't hear me over there? Oh, I'm muted there. Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. You guys had me muted.
We were muted.
Yeah. So basically, to answer the question, we do have a landsverordening bescherming van persoonsgegevens. So that's the law. But if you are adhering to GDPR, which is much more stringent, then you are compliant with our local law as well. So if we just assume, like Rigo said, assuming you comply with GDPR, then you're good here as well.
Yeah.
But like you said, Eric, if you know the local law, then you have a bit more room for experimentation compared to what
we will always ask you.
That's why we collaborate closely together with you guys. Okay, that brings us to the end of this event. I would like to very much, before we start with inviting you for drinks, I would like to very much thank Eric, Claudia, Petey, and Naisha for the contributions. Thank you very much. And a special thank you to Vanessa and Aldo for moderating this event from Curaçao.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much. And we also look forward to this collaboration. Yeah, that will start. Thank you very much, Vanessa.
You're welcome. It was an awesome morning for us. And enjoy the drinks. We will keep drinking coffee over here until it's time to have a drink.
You will have your lunch drinks then. Enjoy and talk to you next time. Well, talking about drinks and bites, Rigo, you wanted to invite us and you even brought the Caribbean music with you.
Yeah, so we organize some Caribbean music. So we'll start, I would say that broadcasting some music.
From Curaçao.
Yeah, from a friend from me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. This is the end of this event. Talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.